It was so fucking nerve-wracking.
Existing home sales just had their biggest jump in 2 years.
But then I'm like, I just know them buying.
Right.
These guys are smarter than me. I don't fucking know anything. My wife and I joked we bought like maybe 5 properties before we bought a house. That was a massive, massive moment in my real estate career. I had developed enough of a sense of what I kind of understood about the multifamily market, what the values were, and how people were making money. It all of a sudden seemed like things were cheap.
Welcome to No Vacancy, where I share conversations with LA's top multifamily owners, investors, and visionaries. I'm your host, Taylor Avakian, the founder of the Group CRE, and I specialize in the sale of apartment buildings in Los Angeles. On this show, we cut straight to what matters, market insights and real-world strategies straight from LA's multifamily icons to help you navigate one of the most complex real estate markets in the world, Southern California. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I have my guest, Morgan McMullin. I'm going to read his LinkedIn bio. As an executive vice, impressive position with Partners CRE / Keller Williams Commercial, I have successfully, parentheses, and occasionally unsuccessfully, brokered a significant bunch of investment transactions. A specialist-ish in the sale of acquisition of multifamily and commercial properties, I am particularly focused, on a good day, at helping my clients make lots of good investment moves and stuff. I value my transactions over my client relationships. Switch those around, which contributes to my ability to successfully represent clients' interests and has led to me becoming their investment advisor for life and answer a whole lot of free investment advice calls. I've built my business and track record on superior market knowledge, specifically where the dairy products in the cereal aisle are, and a pretty solid work ethic, while still holding myself to the highest standards of integrity, parentheses, and above industry standards at least, parentheses. As a reluctant owner and manager of investment properties throughout Los Angeles, I understand the nuances, concerns, and issues, so many issues, commonplace amongst investment property owners and investors. This hands-on approach keeps me current on all market conditions and also helps to build calluses. Wow. Such a good dude. Such a good LinkedIn bio. And we were talking about it before, but like sometimes you just got to take yourself a little less seriously. That's right. I think people, and especially on social media, man, like you got kids and everyone my age is on social media. It's all like fake shit anyways. It's all this perception of what you want to be perceived as. And in reality, if anyone met you, they'd be like, that doesn't seem like you at all. Right. You know, so I think that's, for me at least, reading that, I was like, dude, I have to say that. It's so refreshing because it speaks to who you are as like an individual. And you said previously, at this point in your career, if people don't vibe with you, like that's okay. You don't need them to vibe. You don't need everyone to like you or to invest with you. And we'll walk and talk into how you are a premier owner now, which
well, there's let me jump in real quick, because there's certainly like a period, and you're potentially like on the back end of this period where there's a fake it till you make it mentality. You're 20 years old, fresh out of college, you feel young, you are young, you're inexperienced, and you have to fake it, right? Like in order to get anybody to sell a multi-million-dollar property, for sure, dude. You got to dress the part. You got to kind of talk the talk, and then the longer you're in the business, the more you become comfortable with your style of business and the way that you do business, and then that that facade, we'll call it, like kind of just starts to shed. That's when the tattoos come out at client meetings. You know what I mean? Like for exactly. Years, it's you're not embarrassed by the car you drive, whatever the thing is that before was kind of an embarrassment. It's something that you now embrace as like part of who you are. And so like when I wrote that, I'm like, fuck it. Like this is like much more genuinely who I am than, totally what was written before. The
corporate BS.
Yeah. That like, I remember like I had like, friends, I was like bouncing it off of them, like helping me write that. How's it sound? Not the new version, the original version of
totally.
LinkedIn, bro.
And you're like, no, this is 100% authentically me. And like,
I don't put it in my investment decks, but that's my next.
But right.
Yeah, that's my.
You'll get there. Yeah. You'll get there one day. No, it's funny you mentioned becoming more yourself. I think it's like you stack skills upon top of each other as brokers, where you have the confidence to know like there's very few situations where I'm not 100% or I'm not 95% sure of what I need to do. But if there is, like, I've dealt with a bunch of stuff I didn't know what to do, and I figured it out anyways. Right. And so you kind of proof stack your skills to where it's like, look, man, you see my track record, you see what I do, I perform. Like, if you're with that, great. If not,
right. You feel much less embarrassed by what you don't know. There's a long period of learning where you're embarrassed by what you don't know, and you try to, like I tend to fill those gaps with like talking or bullshitting or stuff like that, which is not a great trait in most businesses, but especially in real estate. And so I did that a lot until exactly what you're saying, like you stack the skills to a point where you're like, okay, I'm comfortable if something comes across like, my desk or whatever that I'm unfamiliar with, like I feel absolutely fine being like, I have no idea what this is. I'm going to figure this out, but I don't know what this is. This is new to me. And there's always new stuff,
always learning.
But there's like that critical period where you're really like learning the kind of the nuts and bolts of the business, where it's like,
I get
expected to know it,
Yeah.
So
totally.
Like, if you don't know what a cap rate is, like, saying like, I don't know, but let me get back to you is not an acceptable answer.
There's certain things where it's like, read one page of like the How to Be a Commercial Real Estate for Dummies book, and just know that.
Right.
Know that. And then.
So certainly there are limits to like there are some things you absolutely need to know as like a business professional.
Yeah. No, 100%. Which I want to talk to you because you obviously, a buddy, friend, and have made a successful transition primarily from brokerage, which you did for, 15, 20 years?
Yeah. I mean, I did it really, really hard for 12, I would say.
Okay.
And then
recently now more on the principal side, investing in apartment buildings in SoCal.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So 2005 was when I started in brokerage, and I was absolutely grinding for about 12 years. And then I invested in properties earlier than that. We'll get to that. But it was certainly much more of like a side thing, which I think a lot of like, it's very uncommon for brokers to be selling properties and being successful as an agent and not investing in something.
Yeah.
But it's still like most are doing it, especially the ones that are still grinding. They're doing it as just like hey, I now understand this, so like let me throw some money here, let me throw some money there. And so I was doing that for a long time,
like rolling fees in.
And like even more than that, buying buildings, but just like not as focused. On it.
Got it.
And so, and then it was about the last like 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. Yeah, my math is not adding up. I'm old.
Yeah,
I'm losing track of time
it goes by quickly, man.
It goes by quickly. So like the last 5 years, I've really been grinding on a new venture. But before that, the previous couple of years, I was kind of focused more on trying to make that transition.
Did you have it in your mind when you started brokerage that eventually you wanted to get to the principal position, or was it kind of a natural progression where you saw what other owners were doing and the wealth that they were creating for themselves and their family, and you're like, I can do that. Like I know everything about all these properties, or at least I think I know a ton about. I know what a good deal is. I know what a bad deal is. I know where the good pockets are. Like, was that when you started brokerage, did you want to go down the principal route, or was it a natural transition?
Yeah, good question. I 100% got into brokerage it was almost like to learn real estate, and I didn't know exactly so in my mind, I wanted to again, we're going back to like 23-year-old me.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to develop shopping malls, right? Which is kind of a fun thing. But I was like, okay, well, that is, I'll rewind a little bit more. I'm not local to LA. I grew up in Montana in a town of 800 people called Ennis, Montana. If anybody wants to Google that. It was 800 people when I was growing up 40 years ago, and it's still 800 people.
Jeez.
So, but it's a big secret. Don't go there. The locals will.
Terrible.
Yeah, they'll
really bad.
Yeah, they'll string you up. And so I ended up in LA because I followed a girl here out of college. We're still together. We've got 2 kids now. So it worked out, which is kind of that. And I started working I literally started my commercial brokerage job a month after moving to LA.
Wow.
But my goal, it was like, if I want to develop shopping malls, and
I know.
I was like, how do I get there? And then it was like, okay, well, this seems like a really good step. This is like getting your PhD in real estate by, you're among a bunch of real estate agents who are all kind of conglomerating information, putting that information together to try to do deals. You're also engaging with principals that are the people that are actually doing the deals and the ones. And so you're getting all that information. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go into that and let's just call it, I was like kind of thinking about grad school while I was in college, like maybe because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I went to UC Santa Cruz, not a lot of guidance.
Banana slugs.
Yeah.
Like real strong.
I did. There was a lot of agriculture involved, but
for sure.
Yeah. But I didn't really see a future in agriculture.
Especially at that time.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, I looked at it as if, I went to my parents who still live in Montana. I was fortunate enough. I was like, look, I'm going to need some financial help because I want to go into real estate. And I looked at it as, okay, well, if I go to grad school, I have to pay tuition, I have to pay for food and housing, all the other things, and I come out of it with a degree, right? So I was like, okay, real estate seems like it would be in some capacity, it would be a good fit for me. So I was like, so I viewed brokerage almost as like my form of grad school. I was like, look, if I fucking suck and just like absolutely flame out in this, I will find another avenue that these I'll call it, I gave myself 2 years, that these 2 years aren't wasted.
Yeah.
Right. So
like your personal MBA.
Right. And I think that mindset at that age, it helped me a ton because I was less focused, obviously like financial independence was and has always been a major goal of mine, but I didn't feel, I just saw it as a process of learning about real estate. Mm-hmm. Right. And so then you get in and you find things that really work for you and you like and whatever, but like, it allowed me to, and I worked at a company called Investment Real Estate Associates, still around, was founded by a guy named Rafi Corey, and he used to always say, he would always say, put your blinders on, like don't get distracted, because as you know, when you're starting in brokerage, you're, it's hard. It's easy, but it's hard. Anybody can sit down and cold call. Yeah. Anybody can, literally. Anybody. Yeah. Unless maybe your voice doesn't work or something. Almost anybody.
Most people, yeah.
But to do it successfully and to make money and to be able to, and forget about money again. Let's just go to get somebody to meet with you is very, very, very difficult. So having that mindset of like, and Rafi saying like, put your blinders on, which, is like the horses have those blinders to make sure that they just run forward, like birds or whatever are like distracting them. So it's kind of like tunnel vision, and that just allowed me when I hit every time there would be something horrible. I did like 40 proposals in my first year, something like that. Jeez. And it was like, and I think I listed like at the end of the year, like 1 or 2 properties, it's just like brutal, but I just saw it as a means to an end, which was in some respect to be in the real estate industry. Obviously, like I dreamt of being a principal, but it wasn't like a realistic, it didn't feel super achievable at the time.
Yeah. Got it. And so your first year in, you feel the pain that is commercial real estate brokerage in your first year. I'm sure there were maybe some other guys who started at the same time who had some success maybe a little earlier than you. And again, you got to put those blinders on and just do what you're supposed to do, because I mean, personally for myself, we had a similar story in terms of I wanted to develop apartment buildings when I was like, what do I want for a job? And one of my family friends who kind of had done apartment building development, he's like, hey, look, I love it. Glad, fantastic, right? You can 100% do that, but first go understand the business and learn and make connections. And he had done the brokerage to principal development route. And so I was like, well, he's got a sick house in Tahoe and a really nice Escalade and a, $150,000 boat. Like, I think I'm going to do what he does, right? And so it's similar in terms of wanting to understand what real estate even was. Like, I didn't know what a cap rate was or a GRM or any of that stuff. I took real estate in college, but it was just like Excel spreadsheets, and we didn't even do multifamily. And it's when you look back on it, and I look really fondly, because I didn't close a deal for 12 months either. 12 months. First listing was like 6 months or something, but it took another 6 months escrow, which, as someone who had not closed a deal, was brutal.
Yeah.
I look so fondly on those 2 years, even though I was working my face off. And I mean, I remember my alarm, Morgan, I set it at 3:45 in the morning, because I remember our CEO at the time said, you got to give up working out. Like, you're just not going to be able to do it. You got to, be in here at 6, leave at 8. Like, when are you going to work out? And I remember I was just ego, whatever it was. I'm like, dude, fuck that. Watch me, right?
Yep.
And I think that it proved to be incredibly, looking back, I don't even know how I did that, but I did it. And I think you have to have that mentality when you start in this business, and when you go on the journey of being an independent contractor and not having any sort of, fortunately for both of us, I think we had some support from our parents, but like in reality, that can only last so long, and you have to perform, and you have to make something happen for yourself, eat what you kill. And I think that's why people with personalities like, you and I and other friends that we know, just, you kind of have to just do it. You got to learn it, grind it. Like, everyone goes through it.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things to add on. Well, I'll add to your 3 a.m. I was never a 3 a.m. guy, but I do like vividly remember I was like, my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, we were like renting. We were in a 3-bedroom with like 2 random people that lived there, which is just wild to imagine now.
Yeah.
And I would buy cases of like Campbell's soup from Costco and take them to work. And like, it's a joke with my wife and I still to this day. She's like, soup's for work, because like I would just heat up soup, and that was my lunch, so I could just sit and cold call through lunch.
Yeah.
And it was also a cost thing, Totally. It was like a twofold thing. So, and I would do instant oatmeal in the morning at the office. I would literally shower and leave, and it would, I'd leave around like maybe 6:30, 7, something like that. Yeah. And then it was just like oatmeal at the office, soup for dinner at the office, go home at like 7 or 8 or whatever, and it's just, it's wild. Having that like tunnel vision, having that laser focus on what my objective was just really helped me, and again, like I never got pulled left or right. It was just always like, okay, well, again, like if this doesn't work out, like let me learn as much as I possibly can. And also like, let me make sure that I don't come out on the other end. I feel like I've heard you say this too on, maybe it's probably on social media. Is, you just don't want to look back on it and say like, I could have tried harder. It's like if you've ever played sports and it's the fourth quarter and there's 2 minutes left and you're fucking gassed. Yeah. And then I would tell myself like, hey man, you're going to be asleep in 3 hours. Go as hard, like everything. Don't relax. Yeah. Just don't relax. Yeah. Because then you won't look back and say like, well, I didn't give it my all. It's the exact same mindset. And I do think that if you have a long-term plan, it certainly helps you get through the short term of it, and that's why there's really 2 types of agents I've seen in business. And obviously it's more nuanced than that, but like I'll categorize people as like people that are kind of learning the business and selling real estate. And then there's just salesmen, and, the first group can still be great salesmen, but it's like I certainly have the ability to put my salesman hat on and be like, okay, let me just sell. Like, do I believe this? Yeah, let me convince myself that it's like, I can believe it enough, right? But through the process, you have a belief, and you have an understanding, and you have an opinion about what it is that you're selling, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to like, shit on your own deal or whatever, but like there's a lot of, and I should say, when I say there's 2 types of agents, these are like agents that make money. Like I know agents to this day who have been doing it for 20 years that literally don't own a single piece of property. Yeah. And do fine, but they just sell. They just are great salesmen, but they don't care what the product is.
Yeah.
You know, like it could be anything.
Yeah.
You could just be selling, you could be selling t-shirts or gold or whatever. You know, it's just like, hey man, like I will sell, which I think, you know, there is a salesmanship that certainly helps in the business, you know, but like, I think that having, you know, if you're in the group that has an opinion, that resonates with clients, they start to listen to you, they start to see you differently. And that really stands out to them, especially over time as you transact with them. It's not like, you know, I still have people, you know, like when an agent calls me about something that's just absolute dog shit and they like kind of know me and what I bought, and it's like, hey man, like don't like, even I'll use you're a perfect example. You will ping me because I always want to see something, but you'll be like, I don't think this is for you. And that opening is because you're not making my mind up for me, just to let you know. If there's some reason that is outside of what you think I would buy,
totally,
I still want to see it because there might be that reason, right? Which is why you should send it. But by opening with that, you have acknowledged that you have heard me, that you listened to me, and that you kind of know a little bit about what I would like to buy. And you don't want to totally put me in a box.
Yeah.
That's why you're showing the deal.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that really resonates with clients.
100%. Relationships. And that was one thing. I think I was in that first boat of just salesman in the beginning. Like I was just ripping calls. Like that was, whenever I didn't know what to do, rip calls. Like, that was just my default mode. And for me, it was try to get a proposal, try to get a BOV, try to get a meeting, right? That was just my sole goal. And I think when I started to see other successful brokers and how they transacted, and really I think it was from a lot of failure of like not winning business, being like, wait, I've been calling this person for 3 months or 3 years, and I thought we had really good rapport. Maybe I didn't go and meet them at this, or maybe I wasn't. And then you start looking into like, oh, actually the person he hired, kids go to the same school and like they hang out on the weekends and yada yada yada. And I started putting 2 and 2 together, and I'm like, if I'm going to be doing this for a long time and I'm going to be good at doing this for a long time, I have to have a robust skill set that is not just being able to pick up the phone and call people.
That's right.
You have to be able to build relationships, find common ground, and also be able to understand what someone actually wants and listen, and not just be that person who sends everything all the time just because you're like, anyone who, I'm marketing my deal. It's like, no, critically think about the relationships you build.
You said something that like is so true, because so many people, they don't listen. And they're always in their head about the next thing they're going to say. Mm-hmm. And like, I've been in meetings, whether it's an investor pitch or a broker pitch or whatever, where you'll hear somebody just like the investor will say something that is so important, so critical, and the other person just steamrolls through what they said because they already had like what they wanted to say.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, hold on, hold on, like just listen. And it sounds kind of cliche because it's like, seems so obvious, but it's hard to do. Like you get really worked up, you're amped for the investor pitch or I'm sorry, I'm like conflating brokerage and the principal side, but
both sides.
But both sides is really is similar. You also touched on something that I wanted to talk about. Now I can't. Well, one of the things that is a big part of any business really is just like the commitment to like the full commitment to, and that's another thing that like when you're in a job where it's eat what you kill, it's hard. There's like doubts. You have doubts because you're not making money, right? And so as long as you can keep committing and recommitting, again, it's like, my sports analogy is if you've ever dropped into a half pipe, like there's vert where you fall, you free fall. It's everything your body has taught you not to ever do is turn your body sideways and just fall. But guess what? If you try to keep your body upright, the board kicks out and you eat shit. And so you have to commit, and then there's certainly overcommitment. Yeah. You land on your face, but like you have to commit to it. And I think that like, in real estate, whatever you're doing on the principal or broker side, you have to commit and you have to recommit. You have to constantly recommit to it. Like, hey man, like this is it. Yeah. This is what it is. Yeah.
It does not go away either. Right. Like the doubts, and personally for me, like there's still days where I have the worst possible conversations with owners. Everyone is just like, and maybe even I'm calling on a new area or something like that, and people are just like, get the F off, don't ever call me again, like, you scumbag, you sleazy salesman. I'm like, damn, man, like, that still hurts me sometimes, right? And I've built up enough of a shield to get through most of those days, but sometimes you still feel it. And I think, again, when you've committed to something and put it down either in your mind, or you made up your mind, or on paper, or you've had other people who have held you accountable, it's like, okay, this is what hard is supposed to feel like. This is what I signed up for.
Right.
This is my commitment.
Right.
And I'm going to give it everything until I either am wiped out for whatever reason, I can't, or I'm just going to keep on going until I make it.
Right.
Which is so important. Do you remember your first like turning point as a broker?
Yeah, I mean, very, like, you're talking about like being
where you knew you could make it. Or like, was there a deal where
so
you're like,
honestly, it was, I had immediate success in my ability to get meetings. So that always felt good, which was always enough of like a backpack.
Yeah, I'm good at this. I have some skill.
Yeah. And that like, you know, and I've always been like a self-confident person. So I never really doubted myself. And it was just really like, you realize that it's a numbers game. And sometimes even if you're good and you have all the skills, it's still just not going to work. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like I distinctly remember the closest deal that I was like, the lady's like, yes, I want to sell it. You're my guy. It was like a 20-something unit building. Yeah. And then I'm like, it's happening,
Let's
you know?
go.
And then last minute, she and a partner owned 2 buildings. They split, and she like called her partner just like as like and she was a broker, and she just like swooped in and took the listing from me. And then I like brought a buyer on it because it was like a well-priced deal, and I got fucked on that too. Yeah. And it was crushing.
Yeah.
It was crushing. But then, you know, it was my ability to just bounce back from those things. Like I don't like, I still remember it.
Yeah.
I still remember.
But like,
yeah, I mean,
and change what you did.
Right. I mean, I've closed 250 deals, and I still remember that specific moment like very, very well. Right?
Yeah.
Because those things leave an impact, but it didn't affect what I did. What the next step was, it was like, okay, let's go. Let's
go. Another,
but again,
seller.
It comes back to, you know, and I've got a really good buddy now who talks about exposure a lot, because he was like a Stanford grad, and he's like, his exposure was like, you know, he always talks about like, well, what would have happened if you had like not grown up in Ennis, Montana, and like, what if you had the exposure that a lot of other people do have? Even UC Santa Cruz, not shitting on UC Santa Cruz, it's a great school.
Alabama,
learn something, whatever. But like, you know, the exposure is so critical, and the things that you're exposed to, and so, you know, if you want to be a principal in real estate, brokerage is literally, you know, you're trying to drink from the fire hose. Is that?
Yeah, you're drinking from the fire hose.
You're drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you are getting all of the information because you're talking to people all day. And if you listen, you will fucking learn a shit ton of stuff. You know? And that was ultimately why it was always kind of, you know, the ups and downs of like trying to get deals and whatever. But yeah, so to answer your question that you asked a long time ago, I was pretty aware that it was going to work after about 12 months.
12 months.
I closed my first deal at like month 10, 11, and then it kind of just went. It was like all of a sudden. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's right. And then it was like a barrage until 2008. So I had basically a 3-year run, 2.5 year run, which was really, really disheartening, and talking about like recommitting. It was, you know, 2008 was still a very, very good year because I had enough in the pipeline from 2007.
Got it.
I think that the financial markets crashed like in October.
Yeah. November or something like that.
And I had enough in the pipeline. I closed a bunch of deals. I was rocking. And 2009 was actually the year that I was doing the soup thing, because it was like you have to like find yourself again. And I closed, I want to say 3 deals that year. After, you know, I think in 2008, I closed probably 15-ish, which was a big number, you know, for me.
And like you're feeling in it, and I felt it too in 2022. like, you're skilled, you can get deals done, a lot of, like, you're confident, right? And then you just get hit by a brick wall. Yep. And like humbled, man.
Yep.
Fucking humbled. Yep. And it's like you're questioning a bunch of things. Like, am I doing what changed? Am I doing this wrong? Like what? And it's not, some things are out of your control.
That's right.
Right. But to go from it's almost harder to fall and get back up from a higher height
than just to get
back up.
To get up.
Get up.
Yes.
Right. Yes. It's that fall is just crushes
That's right.
so many people. And so for you, through 2008, 2009, do you remember, I mean, you must have been feeling like questioning everything. Do you remember when that turned or what happened there?
It was just, it was tough. It was kind of perfectly timed for me because I was still young enough and naive enough that like nothing had like drastically changed in my life.
You were living above your means.
Still in a 1-bedroom apartment with my wife or girlfriend.
Yeah.
We hadn't, I was still driving my beat up 250,000 mile Highlander, with the K-10 bumper. So I didn't change my lifestyle. And so it was hard in just from a psychological standpoint, like you're saying,
totally.
I thought like, I'm like, shit, I figured this out, dude, this is sick. And then it's like, did you?
Yeah.
What, how about this? Go figure it out again.
Yeah.
So it happened, I think at a perfect time in my life and my career where I was able to readjust, and kind of figure out, because it was, I realized quickly that, and you hear older brokers talk about this all the time, that the skill set was less important during when the sun shines or whatever.
Totally.
It's like, so it was like redefine what your skills are. And so it was just like buckle down. I think it really helped me that I had no backup plan, because I had a bunch of buddies. One of them is my partner in my newest, like in my main investment venture. But he had backup plans. He went to a really good college. He was getting like recruited. It was like, and he got pulled into kind of like asset management at the time but I didn't have a backup plan. My plan was to learn enough to go and do something. I'm like, well, now there's nobody's hiring in real estate. So like, I don't know what to do. Let me just stay, And so, I'd say 90% of the agents that I was working with at that time got out of the business.
Wow.
Wow. And there were guys like Bo, my partner, who just went into a different aspect. So I guess that definitely, because he was always driven by from the I want to be a principal side. So it was like asset management, perfect. Like that's something new that I'm learn about. But a lot of them they went and got jobs, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just, some of them turned out to be much more successful than me. Some of them much less, it just like depends on what they did. But I just was laser focused on getting through it in 2010. And then you see progress, which is really critical,
just
like
need a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're like, you need to get fed a little bit, and then you kind of see it again. And you start to get excited. And by 2011, which 2011 was still terrible in terms of like values and stuff, but it was the time where there was like banks unloading stuff. All of a sudden we had transactions again. So
that's all we need. It doesn't need to be a good market or a bad market, as long as there's transactions that are happening.
In 2009, there was like, and I don't have any of these stats.
Yeah.
I probably had them.
No, we won't.
But like there was like nothing going on. Is that a stat?
Yeah.
Is that a
nothing.
percentage?
100%. Yeah.
But one thing I did, from a, and I think this may be a good transition point, from, because of the timing of all of that.
Yeah.
I had developed enough of a sense of what I believed, what I kind of understood about the multifamily market and how it kind of worked more or less, and what the values were and how people were making money. And I'd analyzed enough P&Ls, and that it all of a sudden seemed like things were cheap. And not just like in a, sometimes we kind of can trick ourselves a little bit. It's like, you're telling a client like, look, it used to be 12 times, or whatever. It used to be 15 times gross. Now it's 13. They're like, I still can't make money. But like it got so cheap. And this will lead me to the first deal that I ever bought was a listing of mine. And it was a 6-unit by Melrose and Western. Okay. 20s building, client of mine. I'd done a couple of other deals with him. and he wanted to sell it. And I was asking $550,000. Sorry, $600,000 for it.
For 6 units.
Whatever,
Yeah.
Different
Yeah,
time.
different.
And, I toured it with a dozen of the most, known investors that were still like not completely terrified of what was happening.
Yeah.
I'd gone through all the units with a couple of them, and I had like the highest offer I had was like 475, something like that, which again, numbers are crazy.
Totally.
And we look back on it. But I remember just like, I was just like, talking to my wife, and I'm like, this property is kind of cool. Like, I've been in it. It's nice. I think it's a good deal. I think that it's like I think it would be a good property to buy. And then it was like, okay, how would that work? And how would we put together the funds for that? And so we kind of started working on that. And, I called my client and I said, I'll buy it for you. Like, I want to be like full disclosure. I've marketed it. Totally understand if this is like an awkward situation because, there's certainly like some real estate guidelines that I probably violated.
As long as they agree, I think it's fine.
Exactly. And I disclosed it all.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but more than anything, like I was genuinely trying so hard to sell this thing. And so I was like,
you're shocked that no one else was.
How, I guess. Yeah. And so it was both exciting and it was so fucking nerve wracking because I kept telling. So anyway, we came to an agreement, $550,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was higher than anybody. It was. I think we maybe had somebody at 500 something, but it was like,
but you were
whatever. Like it's still like seems like it's fine, and it was less than 100 a foot. Oh my god. So, and it was like a 7.25 cap, and and rates were around 6.5, something like that. So it like everything made sense.
Yeah.
I was just like, why is nobody? But then I'm like, why is nobody buying this?
Right.
These guys are smarter than me. I don't fucking know anything.
Yeah,
I own this dick, and these guys won't buy it. Like, so that moment was that was a massive moment in my real estate career. Was saying like, okay, even though nobody wants to buy it and nobody's buying anything, and by the way, and this was in 2009. So wow. I'd made some money in 2008, so the funds were there. So, and and it was funny because my wife and I joke about like, I think we bought like maybe 5 properties before we bought a house. Yeah. She was like, can we do the house?
Yeah.
And it's like,
right.
later.
Trust me. Yeah. You'll thank me later.
Yeah.
I promise.
We still own the property, as you probably know. And but it was like it was like a pivotal moment because it was like, hey, you do know something, and it turned out to be really good.
Yeah.
Like
it worked out.
Yeah. And it was like a big growth period just to like know that I have, the balls to be able to do it and, and the follow through to be able to kind of execute something like that. And then it's like, once you've like kind of cracked that, I think within the next 8 months, we bought another 6-unit building by LA City College.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and then it was like the floodgates kind of opened up.
You got the taste.
So it was like,
you understood it.
And these were all like small properties. I was doing them all kind of like pari passu with like a couple of, friends or family or whoever would throw some money in.
Yeah.
I didn't have any idea of how to structure these things from like a truly like invest. I'm just like, put money in and I manage for free. And that's what we do. Like, can we just buy it? And these were all people that were close enough to me that they, and again, that was a big moment is, having somebody trust you enough that you're not going to lose their money, and, like that, that builds that confidence. And then it was like a duplex for $150,000 in K-Town. And, and then we started kind of leveling up a little bit and got some bigger ones, 8, 12 units, 13 units, whatever. Yeah. And that just continued, so.
And then as eventually, right, this becomes more of your focus on the principal side. When did that happen? And what was it that you think, like, was it just this, you got this, you look up one day and you're like, oh shit, I got a lot of property. Like, I'm pretty good. I'm getting income from this. Like, now let's try to go bigger. Do you remember when?
Very distinctly. I brought Bo up earlier. So
yeah,
Bo, Drake, and I were in the pit cold calling together. So, And
he was at IREA.
He was at IREA. He was, I think he started a couple months after me.
Okay.
And, we became friends, when you're in the trenches together. It's
for life.
I'm still very, very good friends with 10 people out of 15 in the pit or whatever it is. And even the ones that I barely ever talk to, it's we have this bond that will never be broken. We can go 6-7 years, reconnect. And it's
remember that one time? I know.
Yeah. And so Bo and I, we both in brokerage, we both our trajectories were very, very similar. We were kind of working similar areas in multifamily. And right as he and I were graduating from the senior junior role, we started working on stuff together. We partnered up on some listings together. We worked really well together.
Uh-huh.
So, and then again, financial collapse, blah, blah, blah. He went into asset management. He kind of bounced around, worked for a bank and worked for.
I'm having him on, so I'll.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You listeners, listen to Bo's.
Yeah.
And in 2011, okay, so this is, as I'm kind of doing these little deals and Bo and I are still friends and we're talking, he's like, hey, we realized early on, again, because we're paying attention and we're listening to people, when I started in brokerage, I just thought everybody that I was selling buildings to was buying it with their own money and they were just super rich.
Yeah.
Right. And then at some point, hopefully early on, you realize that a lot of them are syndicating deals, raising money, and they're not buying it by themselves.
Yeah.
Even the ones there, of course, there's plenty of family offices and super high net worth individuals that buy shit. But a vast majority of our repeat clients are investors that are raising money. And so I realized that. So Bo and I remember we sat down, we put together a business plan. We're like, hey, we should raise money and buy deals. This is in 2011, which, by the way, I think I'd be retired.
I was gonna say you should have freaking.
Well, it was, it's hard to even reflect and
in the moment, man.
Well, the thing that we realized, we had a company name, which is not the company,
not the same
name.
one.
Yeah, not the same one. Which I'm not going to do.
Okay. Off camera.
We had an investment deck. We sat down with a CPA, with an attorney.
Yeah.
We were,
the OA, everything.
We didn't get to OA yet.
Okay.
We were just and then, we were kind of spitballing where we would get money. And a lot of the people were just investors that we were still selling deals to.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there, I'm why the fuck would these guys give us their money? We own nothing.
Yeah.
They own a bunch. How are they? And we don't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
I literally don't have the money to be able to invest enough in a 20, 30 unit building that's going to entice somebody to be yeah, man. So, and none of my, this is, again, I could do the math again, but I'm not great at doing that.
Yeah.
25, 26 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
My immediate circle of people, they didn't have money either.
Yeah.
Nobody had money. So it was just and then so Bo and I are okay, well, cool. Even if we find a really good deal, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
We can't buy it, So it was okay, let's table this. And we tabled it for 10 years and we came back to it in 2020. And that was when we took that launch. So
wow.
It wasn't until then that, and I just kind of stuck with the brokerage thing. And my goal was to earn enough and to just continue to do what I'm doing. Somebody told me, one of the first guys I ever sold an apartment building to, he gave some advice to me. He said, whenever you have enough money, whatever it is, 25, 50 grand, just every year, put your money into a deal, just every year. So that became my goal. Once I cracked the seal in 2009, I invested in a deal every year from 2009 until today.
Wow.
Embarrassingly, last year was the first year.
Yeah.
I didn't make another investment in a pseudo real estate thing. So I'm going to count that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You invested in something.
Yeah. But it was, that was my goal. And so it was always just, put a little bit into, I developed really good relationships with some clients who I invested with, or just some of these small properties. It was just get into I have a brother that lives in Salt Lake City that I was talking to you about earlier, and he sells houses out there. And so when things were cheap there, we started buying some apartments there. He was kind of hey, is this good? And I'm it seems really good. We still own a lot of
nice
stuff. And so it was, and then, again, the networks that we develop are so critical.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that, just like you're not from Los Angeles. And so in order to, you have to create that network from like, the absolute ground level, and, getting that network of people that kind of like, know, trust you. And so I started investing with a broker that I knew that was, more senior than me and was doing really well. And he started buying like some 7-Elevens, and we started doing some of those. And, but I was just, whatever I could put into them,
Yeah.
But again, it's always it's the people, like I've never done like a crowd.
Crowdfunding. Yeah. Crowdfunding.
Yeah. I've like never done anything that's like, it's always just with somebody. And, it was very, very helpful for me to understand what it's like as the LP, because I was definitely like, here I'm doing like some pari passu small deals that I am managing. I still manage some of them by myself to this day. I mean, the tenants have never moved out. So like, they call my maintenance guy. They don't call me. Whatever, it works. And it's not very many.
Yeah.
And so, it was, you realized, or I realized that it was like, I was just giving them money and trusting them. I read the documents a little bit, I think,
but it was you're betting.
It was just, you're just betting on the horse. You're just like, this guy feels like he knows what he's doing. This lady feels like she knows what she's doing. Like, I'm just, here it is. Like, and you kind of look at the deal, of course, and like, whatever. But overall, I just realized that was going to be how other people would invest. Some people are going to be more critical than others in what they're going to analyze and whatnot. But ultimately, it's just, like so much of it, brokerage, investing, it's about trust. And the moment you violate that trust, like your currency, it just drops just dramatically, to almost zero.
Yeah. Like, which is why you have to protect that so much. And I didn't realize it too when I started, right? Because new town, new city, new industry, you don't really know shit. But it's a small community, man, and stuff gets around and people talk. And like, if you're known as that one broker or investor or whatever, and it's not good, like, people know, and it stays with you for a very, very long time, if not forever, in that market. Right. And so I think it's so smart and that you were aware enough of that, which you're a good person too, right? So it's not like you're ever trying to.
I'm not like fighting against the demons that are like, steal that guy's money. It is right. It's easy when you don't have those desires, I guess. Yeah. If people have those,
maybe sometimes. We know a couple people who are like, I don't know if you should have done that, Yeah. No, but that's huge, and so that was when things kind of continued to grow. And I'm curious now, with where your partnership is with Bo and where you're at in your career, like, what are your goals for the next 5-10 years? Do you have that planned out?
Yeah. They change a lot daily, if I'm going to be honest. Like, when I was talking about being laser focused, like, I'm much less laser focused these days. Yeah. Bo and I are constantly like reworking what the objective is. One of the things that I've learned that I really enjoy, and it dovetails perfectly into kind of what we're talking about, is that I love the people aspect of real estate. And so, a lot of investors are, nervous or just have a rule against like taking money from friends or family. And to me, it's like, I get so much more from investments when people that I like or that I'm super close with are investing in my deals. Like, it just makes it like defines why I'm doing it. So, Bo and I, we have under our belt about $50 million worth of real estate. So it's not like a massive amount. It's not like tiny. And so, we're constantly talking about like, well, what's next? We've been approached by some funds that want to kind of like, be our guys that, I struggle with being removed from the people and just having like, hey, here's my required return. And it's like, is that what I'm doing it for?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I certainly think that is a limiting factor in my overall career and success. But I don't know that I care. And so that's what we were able, because the market kind of took a turn. We accumulated our real estate portfolio over just over a couple of years. And then the market turned massively and we've taken a little break. And so it kind of gave us a chance to kind of like, think about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And so, a lot of it, Bo and I are very like-minded in the way that we get excited about deals. We're still like kind of deal junkies, and we are very, very positive, and we both are really effective at getting things done when we want to get it done. And so a lot of that just has to do with like what we find and where we are at that time. And then if we both get excited about something, well, we're going to make it happen, big, small, whatever. So that's going to be a big driving force, because as interest rates went up. It kind of cut the meat out of a lot of these deals. And, the path to profitability for us, as much as I enjoy, like I said, making my friends and family money, I would also like to make like a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that has become more difficult. And so it's like trying to figure out like what the next phase of real estate is, like over the next year or so.
Which is, I think, is one, very self-aware of you, because a lot of people that I notice and are in the business, there's this like this unquenched thirst for just bigger, more. And you can see that in some people and their portfolios, right? But like, are they happy? Do they get to spend time with their family? Do they, like, when you're at a place where if you had to stay at this place or this level for the rest of your life, right? Would you be satisfied and happy with that inside, like psychologically? And if you can say yes to that, I think like, yeah, who gives a shit what other people, oh, you didn't grow your portfolio to 250, 500 million, $1 billion. You could have done that. You're like, no, I like to be with my kids. I like to work the way I work. I like to go to the trips I like to go to. Like, everything fits those boxes, and that self-awareness in itself is, I think, a lot of people don't get there till it's too late.
Sure.
And it's cool that you've...
Well, and frankly, it's one of the reasons, like, Bo definitely has, I don't want to say bigger aspirations. Like, he has because, again, we're very aligned in like how we view the business and everything, but he's like a kick in the pants. Cause sometimes I'm like, I'm such a content person, I'm like, hey man, like everything is like, it's like, well, hold on. You've got a little bit more tank, like you don't want to really sit around and drink beers all day. You know what I mean? So, it is, it's one of the reasons that our partnership works is because he definitely like keeps me kind of like going. Again, not that I'm like trying to retire. That's not the point. But yeah, we're
it's a good mix.
Yeah, it's a good mix, and that's partnerships are critical, man. And that was something that I realized like early on, the 6 unit that I bought on Melrose or near Melrose.
Yeah.
I took one maintenance call. Like literally, like week after we closed, got a call, my tub's backed up. I'm like, I grew up on job sites. My dad built houses in Montana. So, I worked construction during the summers, and, I was crawling in the rafters when I was like 6 running electrical for him. I was like small enough to, so I know, I'm like, I'm a handy guy. Like, I don't need to call somebody, at the time. Again, like if I'm paying a plumber $100 to go out there, it's like I'm like, it's $100 out of my pocket. I'm like, I've got it. So I take my snake down there and I snake this family's bathtub, and I pull out this like greasy, like raccoon tail is what it looked like. And it comes out, and the smell and everything. So thank you, plumbers, for the work. And
they do not get enough appreciation and love.
Because it's funny because the snake that I think I may have bought for because I'm like, I'm going to do this. Never used it.
Never been used.
And that was like literally the last like call that I took. So having, Bo is such an operational guy. He owns a management company, which you're going to talk to him about, I think, a lot. But his perspective on, tenants and the things, the pitfalls that come with that are just so unbelievably valuable to investors and to me, to just have somebody that's like truly in those trenches. Cause here I am, like I'm managing, I had a portfolio of 50 units, and it's like, it's just so small compared to now what we've gone to.
Totally.
And has thousands of units under his belt. So it's like having that knowledge and having that understanding. Also, I'm like way too flexible with tenants, and he's much more callous because you deal with him.
He's seen the goods, the bads, the ugly, right?
Right.
You guys balance each other out where your skill sets and temperaments and everything like that. It's a good balance. Yeah. It works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's tough. Yeah. Because tenants are tough, man. Like ultimately the product, our product is housing. And when your product as a business is places that people sleep, eat and shit, like it's a delicate thing that you're offering.
Totally.
And the consumer is the renter.
Yeah.
And so, that in each building is a different business also. Every building has its own set of, they're just very nuanced in their own way, where it is, how old it is, how large the apartments are, how many people live in the units, who the people are, all of these things. And so, something that I've definitely learned over time is that, the operations of building, you can be you can be the best guy at finding the best deals. If you can't operate the buildings efficiently, you won't do well, and so that's where Bo and I knew that we could underwrite it. We knew that we know all the markets. We know what the market rents are. We know this, we know that. We know how to source deals. We've got the relationships with brokers that we've worked on for 20 years. We've got, but if you buy a deal, then, well, okay, now what? It's not just, okay,
right,
another deal.
Yeah, it's not the broker side. Yeah, that's where you're done.
That's right. It's just the first part of the business plan. Yeah. Now, certainly, we believe that we're immediately adding, just on the buy, you're adding like 10, 15% to your investors because they don't have any of those things that I just talked about. So already we're 15% ahead of the game if they were going to go throw money into a deal of their own, right? So we've got a major head start, but then you have to execute the business plan. You have to add the value that you've been saying that you're going to add, and so then it's like trying to figure out like, oh, can we rent extra parking and can we do an ADU and all of the little things. And it is nice, like, having somebody to bounce those things off of constantly. And I did it in brokerage, and you and I had this conversation because even brokerage, when you're meeting with a client, depending on the client, but like a lot of people don't really want to deal with one-off dudes, or women, like they want a team. They want, and teams it's super helpful to have another person, another brain that has just even if it's a slightly different perspective on things to like bounce those things off of, and it's 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Yeah. Like that's like a very common phrase in our business, I feel like. But there's a lot of, I find a lot of value in having partners that you can work with, but it's obviously like difficult and hard to find partners. And again, this is part of like networking and everything, like trying to find the right people.
You seem to be really good at that because from the brokerage side, you have your partners, literally partners. And then from the principal side too, you found your partner. So one of the things I think when I started out, and I'm going to go back to when I called you and I think I wanted to meet, one, because I know you'd been in the business and we're a broker, and then we're starting to go on the principal side. So I'm like, okay, this justifies us getting together, right? I can ask him about brokerage, and he also wants to get a deal for me, so like maybe he'll say yes. But I hated brokers if they were not on, because I used to see them as like, okay, it's mano y mano, right? Like you're going against me, I'm gonna win the work. Exactly, direct competitors. And it wasn't until I think later in my career and starting meeting some of these guys where it's like, they're exactly like me, man. Like we're the same person doing the same, like these are my homies, like we're boys, like let's just, let's hang out, let's talk. Even if we're not in the same company or we're competing on deals, it's like there's this business is so small and relationships drive everything, where you never know when that broker or that buddy or that friend, whatever, can help you make something happen or make an introduction here or give you a piece of info that helps you and your client, whatever it is, like you don't know. And so when I started to really not look at everyone as enemies, but like, no, like these guys are me, right? Like we're homies. Yep. I mean, shoot, man, it's so much more fun too.
100%.
When it's like someone says, oh, we're working with so-and-so, like he sold I'm like, dude, great guy, good broker. Like you're in good hands.
Right.
Let me know. I'll go to him. If we have a buyer, we'll reach out. Like, no problem. That to me is just so much of a better way to run the business because, again, you only have one reputation. Right. And like, if you're known as the guy, and who knows, maybe that guy becomes a principal or I become a principal and they want to invest with me. Like, it's just
the first deal that we bought, Bo and I want to say we had 10 broker investors.
Wow.
And that trend has remained.
Yeah.
They are they're not like a huge part of it, but it's like
you can go to
these are exactly what you're saying. Guess who knows how to evaluate the real estate really quickly?
Yeah.
Agents. These guys are like, these guys are savvy guys that have some money on the side. And I would do the same thing with them.
Yeah.
Like if somebody brings me a deal and it's like, hey, I'm putting this deal together. Hell yeah, I want to put my money into something that I don't have to do all the work on.
And I'm like, I know that's a good deal.
And I know it's a good deal.
Yeah.
That's right. So you're 100% right. It is. And I distinctly remember, I think it's gotten a little easier to feel connected to the brokerage community because of social media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I started, social media was not as prominent.
Yeah.
It was barely
2011, 10, something like that.
2005, buddy. That's what I said.
Oh, shit. No, but when social media...
It
was 2010, 11, right?
I mean, Facebook was around, but it wasn't a bit. I can't even remember.
It was like a friend. It was like a
that's right
contact book. It wasn't like a
right.
social shit.
And so there's agents that I meet. We meet one time.
Yeah.
We click follow, and then all of a sudden I'm like watching him on vacation with his family, and it's like I feel like I know them, and so I do think that it's become a bit easier to feel connected to people that you don't necessarily see all the time.
Yeah.
But I always saw it as like a valuable resource, there's no reason that, and of course it's like, you can be homies with somebody and play basketball with them, and like try to dominate them.
Yeah.
Try to show them that you're the better than them.
100%.
But as soon as that game's over, the game's over.
Totally.
Then of course there's plenty of people that you're going to not like.
Yeah.
And that maybe won't like you.
Sure.
Not you, but like...
the general people,
And so...
I don't think I have maybe one or two enemies, but that was a younger me. I reprimanded myself. No, it's very true. And it is getting so hot in here. I think the AC's turned off. So we'll wrap it up here. Let me ask you one last question. Yeah. You had to start from ground zero. You just have your knowledge. No... I'm out.
No. Okay, sorry, go.
Yeah, you have to start from ground zero. You can go principal, broker, right? But just like you're 22 years old, you moved here, same situation. You have your knowledge though. What do you do?
Same thing.
Same path.
It would turn out differently, in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, same path, man. There's no better way to crack into it. And it's funny because I have clients now whose kids have grown up and went to college that I knew when they were like little kids because
you're old.
And they call me and they're like, hey, my son has graduated from college, and they're thinking about I just had a client that was like, I'm thinking about buying him a little building that's gonna and I'm like, so he'll learn like a thing?
Yeah.
No. Put him in a pit and make him cold call. I don't care. He has the luxury of not caring about whether he makes money or not.
Yes.
But he will learn 1,000 things. Mm-hmm. And it's all about exposure. So of course, ownership is a form of exposure, but you're not getting all of the people's perspectives, all the investors or all the principals out there and what their thoughts are and all the brokers and everything. It is just a wealth of knowledge. And so, yeah, man, I don't know that, if I had it all stripped away, I think I'd just kind of start over and just run it back,
I love it.
It'd be tough.
I have tough, but
I have to get soups.
I know.
Let's go for
Campbell's. Maybe tonight you're like, hey, your wife's out of town. I was gonna say,
yeah.
Maybe you have some soup later. Huh?
Yeah,
who knows? Mo, thank you.
Right,
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, it would mean the world to me if you could rate us 5 stars on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. It really helps us get our name out there and helps us get fantastic people like our guests to share their insights and knowledge with you. Again, my name is Taylor Avakian. I specialize in the sale of apartment buildings in Los Angeles and Southern California, and I look forward to sharing more of these conversations with you. See you in the next one.